Hello, welcome to Examining Fictional Heroes and the authors behind them. My name is Wayne Brower. I am still discussing survival stories. This time I am going to cover one from a short story by Louis L'Amour. The story is called Crash Landing. It can be found in this collection, Beyond the Great Snow Mountains. And this is a great collection, by the way. A lot of very good stories in this book. But any of you who are familiar with him, you know that to be the case without me saying it. So, I'm going to read a few excerpts from this story and then try to make a few points from it. Dia was the first to speak. "Don't anyone move." His voice was quiet, and its very calm destroyed the moment of rising panic. "The plane seems to be resting insecurely. We must act carefully and with intelligence. I will investigate." With infinite care, he straightened himself from his seat, glancing briefly at the wreckage of the nose. There was no possibility that pilot or co-pilot were alive. The stewardess was sitting in the aisle where she had been thrown by the crash. She looked toward him uncertainly. "Miss Taylor," he said, recalling her name from the tab above her breast pocket. "I was an officer in the Army, and I have some experience with this sort of thing. If all will cooperate, I'm sure we will be all right." He could see the relief in her eyes, and she nodded quickly. "Sit still," he said before she could rise. "I'll only be a moment. The plane is resting, I believe, on a mountainside. Its position seems to be precarious." So Dia moves out carefully from the plane to analyze their situation. Snow swirled about him as he took a few steps back along the fuselage, and then he looked down into an awful void that dropped away beneath the very tail of the plane. For a long moment he stared, awed by what he could sense rather than see. The slightest gust of wind or concerted movement could start the ship sliding, and in an instant it would fall off into the black void. Then he returned to the door. Dia stood outside and looked within. 5 faces had turned to stare at him. "You must move one at a time, and at my direction. The ship is in an extremely dangerous position. If there is any confusion or hurry, it may start sliding. You, in the right front seat, rise carefully. If you're not sure you can move under your own power, please tell me now." A voice came from the seat where no face showed. I cannot move. You must all go first. Thank you. Dia looked at a fat man who clutched a briefcase and was near the door. You, sir, will begin. Rise carefully and cross to the door. Bring your blanket with you. Be sure the blanket will catch on nothing. So this guy does that very carefully and walks out to the door. Dia pointed. Walk 10 steps forward, then 3 to the left. There is a rock there that will protect us from some wind. The man moved away, and Dia turned to the next person. Only when the 5 who were capable of moving had been removed from the plane did Dia look to the hostess. Miss Taylor, get to your feet, he said. Move carefully and gather all the remaining blankets and pass them to me. What about this man? She indicated the seat from which the voice had come. He must wait. All our lives are in danger. Free of the plane, they may still die of cold and exposure. We must think first of the greatest number. Furthermore, he added, the gentleman's courage has already been demonstrated. When you've given me all the blankets and coats, get your first aid kit and as much food as you can carry. Move very carefully and slowly. The ship is resting upon the very lip of a cliff that looks to be more than 600 feet high. As the stewardess began her collecting of blankets, Dia looked toward the seat where the remaining occupant sat. My friend, moving you is going to be extremely dangerous. Do not suggest that we shouldn't attempt it, for we shall. However, I'll move you myself. Miss Taylor will be out of the ship at the time. We may both die. Therefore, think of any message you may want to send to anyone who survives you. Also, if there is any identification, pass it to the stewardess. And you? The voice from the seat was calm, yet seemed tightly held against some pain or fear. What of you? There is no one, Dia said quietly. I am a man alone. Steadily, the stewardess made her trips. 12 blankets, food, then medicine. One of the men appeared out of the darkness and accepted an armful of blankets. 1 per person, Dia said to him. Then a second as far as they will go. The same for the coats. Then move this food and the medicine kit into the shelter. May I help? The man asked, nodding toward the plane. Thank you, no. The added weight and movement would only increase the risk. He turned toward the stewardess. Are any others alive? She looked into several of the seats, then stopped at one where he saw only a thin hand. Yes, this girl is alive. Good. We will proceed as planned. Come out. Miss Taylor tiptoed carefully to the door and stepped out into the snow. Dia turned to her, and she saw his strong, harshly cut face in the glow of the moon. If the plane carries us away, you will keep these people huddled together until daylight. It is now 3 o'clock in the morning. When it has become gray, make a stretcher of a couple of coats. Load anyone who might not be able to walk and move eastward along the ridge. You have matches? Yes. She hesitated. Good luck. Thanks. I'll move the injured man first. I'll wait. No. Please don't. Dia's voice was flat. Now, he lifted his voice to the man in the plane. Your name and address, please. And any message for the stewardess. There was a moment of silence. I am Victor Barclay of Barclay and Payton, attorneys. My wife and children are living in Brentwood, California. He hesitated. Only my love to them. Miss Taylor turned her dark, serious eyes to the big man beside her. And you, sir? No message, Dia said. Your name? It does not matter. But isn't there someone? No. I would like to know. He smiled. She saw it clearly in the moonlight. The dark seriousness of his face changed. My name is Dia, spelled D-Y-E-A. He hunched his shoulders against the cold. Go down. Stay clear of the plane. I believe the wings are both gone, but some part might be under the snow and might drag you over. The rock will give you shelter. When the woman had gone, Dia stepped into the ship. With the decrease in weight, the situation was even more precarious. He walked carefully to the seated man. A blanket was over his legs, but obviously both were broken. No other injuries were apparent. All right, Barclay, I'm going to pick you up. It may hurt like the devil. Despite that, you must hold yourself very still. If you move, you'll overbalance me on this incline and I'll fall. A fall would start the plane sliding. Very well, I'm ready. Dia's eyes flickered for the first time. He looked down the plane toward the tail, then at the door. He touched his lips with his tongue and, setting his feet carefully, stooped and picked up the injured man. As he straightened, he felt a sickening sensation of movement beneath him. He stood stock still, holding the lawyer as if he were a child. The movement stopped with a faint grating sound. Turning, Dia took his first step. As he put down his foot with the combined weight of nearly 400 pounds, he felt the ship shift beneath him. A queer sensation went up his spine. Such a feeling as he had known but once before, when ice cracked beneath his feet out on a lake, a half-mile from shore. He took another step. There was no further movement, and he climbed down into the snow and walked over to the dark huddle of figures waiting in the lee of the rock. I think both his thighs are fractured. I did not examine him. Possibly the lower part of his left leg also. Keep him very warm and set the legs if you can. Barclay looked up through the sifting flakes. His eyes were large with pain. "Don't go back," he said. "That little girl may not be alive by now." "She was unconscious," Miss Taylor said. "It's no matter. I'm going back." "Don't be a fool, man," Barclay burst out. "That plane almost went with us. It won't stand any more moving around. You know it and I know it. There's no use losing two lives when one may go anyway." Dia did not reply. He turned. Then he walked quietly and stopped beside the plane. He balked at the door, and the thought of that girl must be dead by now flashed through his mind. Maybe, but probably not. He knew that was his fear returning to the plane, sneaking up on him. He shook his head and chuckled. The sound of it revived him, and he put a hand on each side of the plane door, a foot on the edge. He stepped inside the plane and moved, gently as possible, to the girl's seat. As he bent to look at her, she opened her eyes and looked right into his. "Don't move," he said. "There has been an accident." She looked at him very carefully, at his eyes, at his face, and his hair. In the plane, the moonlight shone through the windows, bright between scudding clouds. "I know," she said. "Who are you?" "It does not matter. Think of this. Several of the passengers were killed, but 6 have been removed and are safe. If you and I get out, we will be safe too, and we're the last." Her eyes were wide and gray. They bothered him somehow. They reminded him of other eyes. "Where are we?" "On a very high mountain. It is cold and the wind is blowing hard. We're on the edge of a high cliff. When I pick you up, the plane may slip. It did with the last person I carried, but he was very heavy. You must hold very still." "Maybe I can walk. Let me try." "No. If you stumbled or fell, the shock would start us moving. I must carry you." "You're very brave." "No, I'm not. Right now I'm scared. My stomach feels empty, and my mouth is dry. I'll bet yours is too, isn't it?" You're risking your life for me. You're a romantic child, and believe me, the risk is much less than you might suppose. He had been on one knee talking to her. Now he slid an arm beneath her legs and another around her body, under her arms. An arm slid trustfully around his neck, and he got carefully to his feet. After Barclay's weight, she seemed very light. He stood still, looking toward the door. It was 7 steps, every step an increasing danger. She looked toward the door too, then at him. Isn't it strange? I'm not afraid anymore. I wish I could say I wasn't. He took his first step, placing his foot down carefully. Then shifting his weight, he swung the other leg. Then the right, and again the left. Nothing happened. He took a deep breath, looked at the black rectangle of the door, then took another step. As if moved by the added weight, the ship quivered slightly. The movement was only a tremor, but Dia immediately stepped again, and then again. Under his feet, the plane started to move, and he knew that this time it was going all the way. He lunged at the door and shoved the girl out into the snow. He saw her land sprawling. The nose of the plane was sliding down the hill, while the tail held almost still, the body rotating. Fortunately, it was swinging in an arc opposite from where the girl had fallen. Then the whole plane slid in one direction, over the edge of the cliff. As it fell free, Dia, with one agonized, fear-driven snap of his muscles, sprang upward and outward into the blackness and the swirling snow. There was one awful instant when, hands spread high and wide, he seemed to be hanging in space. He hit a steep slope partially covered with snow. He slid, then felt his lower body going over. He clutched, grabbing a fingerhold just as he began to fall. His arms gave a frightful jerk, but he held himself, swinging in black, swirling snow over a vast, cold emptiness. The moon emerged from under a cloud, and he started upward. He was no more than 4 feet below the edge, the cliff before him, not as sheer as he'd thought. The brow sloped steeply back, and on the very edge was the girl, peering over at him. "I'll get help," she said. "No." He knew his fingers could not retain their hold. Can you brace yourself against something? Can your heels dig in? She glanced around, then nodded. Then slip out of your coat and lower the end toward me. Hang on tight, but if you feel yourself going, just let go. His fingers were slipping in their icy crack, already so numb he could scarcely feel them. Snow swirled in his face and the wind whipped at his mouth, stealing his breath away. He gasped. Then the coat slapped him in the face. He let go with one hand and swung it around and up, grasping the suede coat. He felt the weight hit her, but she held it. Carefully, he drew himself up, hand over hand. When his feet were in the crack where his fingers had been, he climbed over and lay beside her in the snow. "I never was an Army officer," he whispered. "I never was anything." His arm was stretched out and his cuff pulled back. He could see the dial on his watch. It was just 11 minutes past 3. Now, I gotta admit, I say this a lot, but that is seriously one of my favorite short stories. In this story, you see every good characteristic of man on display. You see courage, you see confidence. All these people are calm. None of them panic, despite the situation they're in. And keeping your head is always the best thing you can do in any situation. It's often hard, but it is always best to be in control of your emotions. Pardon me. I would like to go over a few points in this about these characters. Of course, Dia is the central figure in this story and the most obvious hero. Again, he's very calm. He takes control of the situation. So he's also displaying leadership at this time and in a situation where it's needed. The funny thing is the fact that he lies about it, having never been an Army officer or in such a situation, despite what he said to reassure the remaining passengers. He simply knew that he was capable of dealing with this situation. And I want to stress that this is a trait that all men need to try to develop. You have to develop all of these traits: confidence, courage, leadership. It's all an exercise, and it's all built by stepping up and doing it in any situation that might arise. And for lack of a better way to put it, doing the right thing in the small things gives you the ability and increases the odds of you doing the right thing when something big comes your way. If you shrink from doing the things that you should do, you will not have the fortitude to do things in a situation where they may be necessary. You have to develop these things. So Dia displays these characteristics. He calmly takes charge of the situation. He assesses the situation. By examining where they are, by finding a little shelter in the lee of a rock, and by taking control of the removal of the passengers, by directing what they do, and by assisting those who cannot help themselves. So again, he is the obvious hero of this story. Many people in this story, though, demonstrate the traits of what make people good people and make them heroic. Miss Taylor, the stewardess, also displays these things. She patiently waits where she is until Dia directs her to get up, and she collects everything that can be used by the survivors. Whatever coats, blankets, medicine, or food. She goes about the plane gathering these things. She's not begging, please let me go, please help me out, doing any of that stuff. She is doing what needs to be done, and she's doing it calmly. Now, obviously, the situation calls for that, but, you know, that does not always guarantee that that is how people are going to react. So, I want to recognize also the heroic things that she did in this story. Further, there was an unknown passenger, or unnamed. He came out of the darkness and accepted the load of blankets and stuff. And he asked Dia if he can help. So, this unknown man also deserves credit for being willing to go back into the plane and help out. Then there is the injured lawyer, Barclay. He is calm from the beginning. He advises them that everyone has to go first. He didn't say his legs were broken. He didn't beg for help. Similar to the stewardess not begging for help. He waited. And as Dia said at one part of the story when the stewardess asked about him, before she left the plane, mind you, so she was also thinking of others, a point I forgot to bring up when I was discussing her. Dia had told her that his courage had already been demonstrated by the fact that he was willing to wait and knew the risk he was taking in doing so. And finally, we have the girl. We do not know how old this girl was. We only know that she is referred to as a girl and not a woman. She is very calm, despite her youth. And in the end, she saves Dia when he is about to go over the cliff. Now, to be totally fair to her, she had volunteered to go get help, which would have also been a good thing for her to do, and not necessarily the wrong thing, being that she could get strong men to help with this. But he knew he could not hang on that long because of his fingers growing numb and the rock being slick. So it had to be her or nobody. She did not balk at that, but she used her coat to help him get up. So each one of these characters that I mentioned has traits that all of us should aspire to have. And I've said before, this is really the thrust of what I'm trying to do with this series, is to find good examples of the traits that all of us should be working to acquire or working to strengthen if we have them. So, at any rate, I thank you guys for listening. I appreciate you taking the time to do that. And if you have a good night and a good week, thank you very much.